I'll really like to introduce Bill here because I think we're very, very fortunate to have him with us here today. Bill's had a incredible career, 53 years in industry and still going, right? So, and you're saying before you invented the first crypto.
Yeah, PC encryptor for the IBM PC.
That's
983. We built here on the Gold Coast. We built the world's first actual board. Remember big on board, 8-bit bus. We built that here on the Gold Coast to match up with the HSMs that we also built, hardware security modules.
Fantastic. So I think we're very lucky to have him here today. And Bill's going to go through something that's quite close to our heart as well. Education for cybersecurity. So can we have a round of applause for Bill, please?
Thanks a lot. Well, it's great to be here once again at AusCERT. For those who might know, I was on the founding committee for AusCERT in 1993. I was working with QUT at the time, and the committee was formed to do what became AusCERT about 1997, 98. Okay, so it's great for me. First of all, may I also pay tribute to the Kumameri people of the Gold Coast and the Gold Coast region, and to their leaders past and present. Okay, and that my wife is an archaeologist, so it helps me a great deal in understanding the traditional owners of the land. Bit of background, yes, I'd like to talk about cybersecurity education because I think it's becoming absolutely fundamental and important in our nation. I'm going to go a bit further than that in a minute and talk about that from a point of view of national defence. So, essentially, yes, as you said, here we go. Okay, yes, I've been around quite a while, and so 50 years ago, I'd like to report to you here at AusCERT 2018, my first Trojan horse. My first Trojan horse program was in 1968, May 1968, literally, about May, June 1968, and it was called The Masked Student, and the Masked Student strikes for the last fantastic time. And this was actually a card deck, a set of cards introduced into my IBM 1800 computer, which you can see there, which was a data acquisition system, was deployed for nuclear physics purposes down at the Australian National University, and I wrote the operating system for that. Of course, IBM delivered it to us without any operating system at all, none, zero, zilch. And so I had to write the operating system and also the nuclear data acquisition systems. And one of the students one night thought he'd play a prank and inserted some cards into the bootloader. Remember bootloaders, card decks, all that stuff? Yes. Well, he inserted it, and the typewriter started typing out the masked student with a hangman on the side. So, the background. So yes, 50 years, and that got me interested in what eventually became cybersecurity. A few things there, as you can see. My dear friend, another anniversary about now. A dear friend and colleague, the late Dr. Willis Ware from RAND Corporation, worked on the very, very first ever, what we now call cybersecurity report that was done for US DoD by RAND. It was started in 1967, very much active in 68, 69, and it was produced in 1970, but was not declassified until 1973, where it became RAND Report R609. The -1, by the way, is the declassified version, and it is slightly modified, mainly because of sources. Those who are in the military would know what I'm talking about, mainly because, not because of the content, but because of the sources. Okay, Osaka, by the way, 50 years old. And of course, guess who else is 50 years old? Intel. Intel Corporation didn't exist before 1968, okay? So that's why I originally bought. And of course, we'll see in a minute, naturally, the great thing, Stanley Kubrick made, of course, 2001, A Space Odyssey. We'll talk about that in a minute also from the point of view of cybersecurity. Well, let's move ahead. Why is it important? Why are we headed towards, why is it becoming important, vitally important? I'm going to go further here and say here at this conference, not only are we talking about business security, we're talking about national security. Not the first to say it. Kirsten Nielsen, as you saw there, Secretary of Homeland Security, has basically said cybersecurity is national security. Everything is dependent upon cyber, on systems in cyber. So national security and cybersecurity are the same. That was, of course, just a couple of months ago at the RSA conference in San Francisco. Most importantly, as you most likely know, NATO and Australia, as you know, we are a partner in NATO. We're not a member of NATO, but we're a partner in NATO. And we had colleagues who worked on the report on the provisioning, the legal status of cyber warfare, the cyber warfare report, which I recommend you look at. Version 2 is out now from the CCDCOE in Tallinn, and you'll see it there. So a cyber attack would trigger Article 5 of a treaty. Attack on one ally equals attack on all the allies. That's in the treaty, and of course we're a partner in that treaty, so I'll let you put 2 and 2 together and get 5. And 2016, very importantly, just as in the United States, cyberspace has been declared a domain of warfare. So that's from NATO, and 2016, along with land, sea and air. And of course, those our friends here from the United States, you know that Cybercom was raised to a full operational command status. Just someone helped me this last year, wasn't it? Middle of last year. So it now ranks, it was a subsection, but it's now a full command status in the United States. Cyber Command is now fully statused. Okay, so that was defense, by the way, defense exercise, lock shields, and of course we participated in that for our friends and colleagues in Canberra, ASD, etc. Okay, so what am I talking about? Well, the problem, basically, and this is from Google. You like this one? The internet, that humanity doesn't understand. We built it, and we don't understand it. But we have to work with it. It's the largest experiment in anarchy. You know who that's from? Eric Schmidt of Google. So what's it all about? Interesting. But, you know, it goes back quite a while. Benjamin Franklin, later paraphrased by Winston Churchill, and Alan Lincoln, even later. By failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. And that's what I do, as I say, to prepare means that you know how to prepare. And that points us to the topic of this afternoon, the problem of education and training in our country, or any country, really. So let's move ahead. There is a gap. It's emerging very fast. Have a quick look at that figure, as you can see, from a survey group headed by a guy called Michael Connery. Basically, there is a real gap. You see what the CIO and CISOs are saying there, where and the CEO and the CFO saying, hey, we're highly secure. And the CISO says, no, we're not. You okay? So we have a problem. Sufficiently secure? Well, we're getting a bit closer. But you've got the certain problem here. There is this gap emerging between the boardroom and, of course, the IT, shall we say, whatever form the IT takes. There's a massive gap emerging based perception on education. Education across the spectrum, not just IT, but at the boardroom, okay, etc. Oh. Oh, just went, okay. Right. Well, we've all heard the figures. You've seen it all before. 1 million cybersecurity job openings, that's Forbes magazine, just recently, okay. What else we got? 2019, Symantec, JobForge with 1.5 million. That one's also supported, by the way, that Symantec one is also supported by the Cabinet Office in the United Kingdom saying similar things. But colleagues, let's have a quick look here. Indeed, I checked it for us for this conference. I went to just last week, 22nd of May, I had a quick check. And Indeed in the UK has got 3,775 job ads asking for cybersecurity in the Indeed website. Here at seek.com, which you all know about, cybersecurity jobs, 481 on the 22nd of May. But colleagues and friends, look, when I went through those jobs, if I see it again, I think I'll scream. Wanted 2 years experience, 5 years experience, etc., etc., etc. We have to have a way of getting young people out of training, out of education, into job opportunities. And this is this problem where politicians keep saying, we want students coming out who are job ready. Well, I'm sorry, that's not what universities were originally prepared to do or what they were supposed to do. They're not job ready. However, I suppose if we're talking about doctors, we tend to think they should be. But remember, doctors do have to go through hospital training and what have you before they start to poke needles into you and I, or even nursing, shall we say. So we need to think about closely what we mean by the number of jobs. Of those 481, I had a quick look cursory overnight, and I had a cup of actually coffee in my hand. I can tell you literally there was only about 10 of those who I would say would take on a new training position. Okay? So there were only 10, not 410, 10 out of 481. They all wanted, they got poach people from somewhere else. That's what I was about. Okay, well, let's get on the topic this afternoon. What's happening? And this, by the way, this survey done, paid tribute to Dr. Vicky Liu of QUT, who's my co-worker in this particular area. We've looked at, we've not looked at TAFE, okay, and we've not looked at postgraduate. We deliberately looked at undergraduate education. Now, the postgraduate education is changing. For example, Griffith University, with which I'm associated as an adjunct, have announced they will be offering a master's program in cybersecurity starting, I think, second semester or first semester next year. So you've got the master's programs. We're not talking about that. We're talking about undergraduate programs, the sort of people who come out with a bachelor of something or other type degree. That's what we're talking about. Australia has 43 universities, and we have a population of 25 million people. That's rather interesting, by the way, everybody. If you do a ratio of population to universities, have a little think about that. We're very high up on universities, you see. And the reason is very simple. Back in '89, we made all of our colleges, their CAEs, into universities. So that's how the big number came up to 43. But it wasn't true in the mid-1980s at all. We had 3 levels of tertiary education here. We had TAFE, we had CAEs, and we had Colleges of Advanced Education, and we had universities, okay? But we've now more or less got 2 levels. But that's in blurring too, because some TAFE colleges are now offering bachelor's degree, and one's even trying to say we're offering a master's program. So once again, we're blurring, okay? Okay, well, there they all are. What we're talking about then is these self-accrediting institutions. Okay, there are 43 of them. But please note the next one. We have a hell of a lot, 115 non-self-accrediting enterprises. These are those who have to go through TEQSA or ACQA for accreditation of their courses. We're going to concentrate on the one on the left, the self-accrediting ones, the universities as we know them today. Self-accrediting courses. Okay. So the problem we're getting into in doing our work has been a plethora of terminology. You name it, they've got it, and they're all completely different. So some people use the word, we have a program in IT, somebody with a course in IT, we've got a subject, we've got a unit. Believe me, they're wild and they're woolly. We have core units, we have major units, we have minor units. Good luck. Good luck for your kids sorting their way through it. It's been a nightmare going through 43 universities, looking at the way in which they designate things. By the way, colleagues, in America it's slightly different. Okay, the disciplines in which you'll find cybersecurity varies quite a bit, mainly of course in the science, IT and engineering area. So you'll find something like a Bachelor of Science Cybersecurity or a Bachelor of, you got the idea. But there are a couple which are really strange, which have got some sort of cyber in an information systems type program within sort of the law, business and policy area. So there's a bit of a mismatch there. Okay, well let's have a quick look, and here we are. So this is up to date for you. We just changed this. This is based on a paper we presented in America in June last year, an invitation to the Colloquium for Information Systems Security Education in the USA. Dr. Louis and I were invited to give a presentation on cybersecurity education at tertiary level here in Australia, which we did, and that was well received over there. And as you can see there, You can add them up yourself. It's slightly changing. We've had to actually down and up a few. We've got 4 universities in Australia who actually have a degree designated as something cybersecurity. You know, Bachelor of Cybersecurity, something like that, okay? There are 4 of them. There they are there. Now, New South Wales, Deakin, Latrobe, and Edith Cowan. And the majority tend to fit into that next one down, the 19, where you've got some sort of solid major, minor sort of specialisation, or even possibly postgrad, meaning honours year. It's rather hard to, there's a splitting point there in 4th year where things get a bit confused. So there they are there, as you can see from Murdoch, Holpom, ANU. ANU is a new entry, by the way. In our presentation in America, ANU wasn't there, but they've just announced their new cybersecurity program at ANU. I think it starts, anyone from ANU? I think it starts 2nd semester this year, I think. Or it might be next year. I think it's 2nd semester this year. And that's an undergraduate program in cybersecurity there. It's fairly advanced. The next one down, as you can see, where there's no real cybersecurity, maybe there's between 1 and 3 cybersecurity units which are sort of optional for students to pick up and do. Now that's quite frightening. That means that we've got 12 universities that fit into that categories. University of the Sunshine Coast, New England, as you can see, Sydney. In the paper, which I think, in the background documentation, which I'll give to AusCERT, you'll have the codes will be in that, and all these numbers will be fleshed out for you in full detail. So, rather interesting times. As you can see, it's not exactly wonderful. There's a few there, IT courses, but no cybersecurity courses at all. Charles Darwin and Torrens, the 2 universities who have nothing. And there's some that don't even have IT. Bond University here on the Gold Coast, for example, closed down its IT school totally a few years ago. Australian Catholic University, etc., etc. DIV is the, maybe that's appropriate, is the University of Divinity in Melbourne. So it's rather interesting. So if you want to do religious studies and, I don't know, you got the idea. Anyway, they don't have an IT course in there either. University College London, there's a bit of an interesting situation there. That's actually changed, and they're now a part of the University of South Australia, but there's nothing much happening in that one. Okay, so let's move ahead. So there they are there. There's the 4, which now have the 4 bachelor's program. Latrobe, as you can see there, Edith Cowan, Charles Deakin, and of course, dear old friends at University of New South Wales, including Defence Force, ADFA, in Canberra. So let's have a quick look at the notes on where we are, what we're doing. Essentially, there's marked variations. Let's summarise the situation. Where are we? What's actually happening? Well, there's a very, very big variation across the sector. Minor, majors, core. Very few actually have cybersecurity as a mandatory. Now, let's not, they tend to use the word core, but the core can be optional. You choose a core unit. Very few have a mandatory designation beside the subject, whether you call it a subject or unit. In the United States, they tend to count it on the number of what's called class hours per week. So if you counted 39 class hours, class hours over a semester, so 13-week semester by 3 hours a week would be one subject. Very hard to really find exactly what's happening in a particular area. Marked variation. Holistic approaches, few and far between. If something's being done in information systems or business school, it's in the business school, and it doesn't talk to the computer science school, and they don't talk to the law school. You got the idea. So it's a bit of an isolationist policy. Content variation. Well, content variation is extreme. Where some of the subjects, we've been through all of them. My God, some math, crypto is one of them, for example, and one even has, of course, psychology in there too. So you get this extreme variation in class content. There are many, many missing topics. I'm not sure what's going to happen with this, but there's a whole pile of notes that go with this, which I hope will be with AusCERT. It goes through the whole loss there. Now, what's important about that, there are missing topics. I can't find anybody who discusses, for example, what's called the common criteria of the ASD evaluated products list, which is, of course, the way in which we test and verify. And, well, you know, if you buy a car, you know, it is under the Motor Vehicle Standards Act, tested as being suitable for use on the road. Well, we used to have a thing called the EPL. No, I don't used to, because no one seems to care anymore about it whatsoever. The evaluated products list, topics like that, or testing, are just not discussed. Evaluation and testing, we couldn't find one subject at any university. But one sign of exception at the University of New South Wales, there is one group there, a product called SEL4, which does talk about high trust systems. Okay, so University of New South Wales is an example of that, not ADVA, University of New South Wales in Sydney. They have Gunnar Heiser and his team, and they do teach that in a 4th-year unit. So evaluated high trust systems, very, very important for IoT, Internet of Things. When you're embedding a base operating system into your video camera, you want to make sure it's right. Okay, so it's getting better. Absolutely no discussion at all of the history. We couldn't find one unit that talks about how we got here. History and background. Not at all, zero zilch. A good example of that, the Orange Book from 1983, that's 1985 one, I think. My original version is 1983, the draft version. The Orange Book, which was called the Trusted Computer Systems Evaluation Criteria, established by the US government and later on agreed in the ITSEC of the United Kingdom and freeway into Europe, but not taught. We could not find any discussion at all except at the University of New South Wales. And of course, Intel, we used bring it up to date, we tried to find one course that would teach programming or software development around the Intel SGX modification to the Intel family of chip, the core set of chipsets. The SGX, I'm not sure, you know about enclaves at all? Intel's changed the hardware, the architecture of the chip changed about 2 years ago. And SGX is a technology that enables you to have a very isolated area inside your machine where you can store such things as cryptographic keys and what have you. So it essentially puts a HSM into the chip. You okay? We find no one teaching SGX at all. The Intel do offer a software development kit. It's not talked about. We couldn't find anywhere in any subject whatsoever. So from right back to right today, very interesting. And what's it tell us? It tells us one very simple thing. We're lacking the teachers. We don't have the teachers to teach this stuff. Okay, a real problem. It's all very nice to say we need, what's our Prime Minister said, 11,700. Oh, here we are here. Someone from government. This is from Financial Review, okay. Australian government estimated that cybercrime was going to cost 17 billion, and we're going to have a real problem in filling jobs, and cyber education is in its infancy. That's the Australian Financial Review. And of course, we have to start working about how we teach in cyberspace. That's a Financial Review report. Okay, let's move ahead. So, missing topics, where are we going to go? Well, there are other ways of getting to it, getting to cybersecurity education, and of course you met them here, SANS. The Prime Minister's announcement of the TAFE program, and I have to do a declaration here, I'm an advisor, an honorary fellow at TAFE Queensland, and I'm advising them on the new Cert 4 and advanced diploma courses in cybersecurity. It does worry me a little bit. I mean, a high school person coming out after year 12 will be doing the whole of IT plus cybersecurity as a Cert 4 in 1 year. That's very hasty tasty. Wow. Gee, why not become a brain surgeon at the same time? I mean, this is just downright bloody ridiculous, okay? And yet, our politicians are saying exactly that. Anyone in PMNC? That's just stupid. Okay, but that's what's being said. We're going to create 11,000, we need to get over 11,000 jobs in cybersecurity, and we're going to do it with TAFE. Well, okay. Well, at least I'll do my best to help. But I mean, honestly, come on. You got to teach all of IT plus cybersecurity in 1 cert 4. Well, it's just downright silly. Okay, but that's what they're doing. We're not the profit ones. So TAFE, we got the certificate, advanced diploma, and of course in some of the TAFE now, we now have undergraduate degrees at Box Hill, for example, and master's degrees. NFP, not for profits, with ISC Squared, CompTIA, Osaka, etc., offering those sort of services. Industry, I put industry here, saying these are companies which are essentially for-profit companies, and that's Microsoft, Red Hat, SANS, etc. There's a combined situation, which is like AusCERT, which sort of offers that certification as sort of an accredited subject inside the university. So we have included them. I haven't excluded them in our work. We've actually put them in, even though in some ways the curriculum being offered is exactly is for the ISC Squared, for example. And by the way, I'm a fellow of ISC Squared, so I know them quite well. So that's, we put them in, and we count them as AusCERT, but we put them in there even though the curriculum itself is actually ISC Squared curriculum. Okay, and of course, MOOCs. And of course, massive open online courses. Well, start looking, they're everywhere. One of the best ones I've seen are coming out of Atlanta, Georgia, Georgia Tech, and the Udemy, Coursera, EDX, and Udacity. Recommend Udacity right now. So that's what's happening. So let's have a look, and then, however, we do have one thing, and here is the latest version of it. This is finally now the new cybersecurity curriculum for 2017. You okay? This is the international agreed curriculum, and done by, we'll see in a minute, 325 people and 35 countries, etc. Association of Computing Machinery, the IEEE, ACA, SIGSEC, and my group, IFIP TC11 International Federation. And this is something that was started about 15 years ago, and here it is now in the final version, version 1.0, came out in December last. So we now have an international curriculum on cybersecurity, CSAC. Now, so that's good, a good start. Let's move ahead very quickly. Of course, the problem is one of costing. Things like the SANS Institute courses, CompTIA, etc., fine, excellent, go to them, but where's the pricing? And it's not quite the same price as TAFE, but you've got the idea. Definitely, this is where we get this problem of politicians saying we want students who are job ready. Well, there has to be a combination of both, coming out of university and also then moving on. However, of course, I don't really think a grade 12 student would be paying $8,395 for a SANS course. Okay. We have announced, as you must likely know, the Academy Centres for Cybersecurity Education. This was set up by the Prime Minister, and it was at 16 or 17, I think it was 17, 2017. There are two of them nominated, University of Melbourne and Edith Cowan, Cybersecurity Excellence, two of them in Australia. The idea wasn't to be self-sustaining. Look, to be controversial about who's kidding who? The PMS have announced a $1.9 million funding over a 5-year period for 2 universities. Oh, come on. To quote a very old friend of mine, Richard Clark, who said about cybersecurity, you know, guys, that budget there would buy the coffee for the naval ships. Well, this is buy the coffee for this is just ridiculous, okay? We have to get the message across to our politicians. Stop being stupid. That's stupid, okay? Downright stupid. 1.9 billion fund. Let's get serious. Honestly, let's get serious. I worked for many years in the United States with the thing called the CAE program, which I'll go into in a minute. And it really is quite, yeah. So the aims are the same as what we have as the Centres of Academic Excellence in the United States and the new Academic Centres of Excellence in the UK, which have, of course, been the CAE ones in 1998 and the ACE ones are just recently stood. So the idea, basically, develop skilled people, okay, and develop new technologies. this is the CRC Institute. This is not the teaching one. That's the first one, 1.9 million. This is a different one, okay? This is for research and development, not for undergraduate education, which is what I'm talking about, okay? This is the, and that's got a bit more money in it, but again, coming from universities. Australian Computer Society, which I'm a fellow, has announced, of course, the certification for professional cybersecurity professionals, and you can go ahead and do that. The United States, who I've been mainly associated with, the new USA has agreed many years ago that they need to involve everybody at the tertiary education level to get things moving. And indeed, the Centers of Academic Excellence program was started up in 1998-99 through the help of Richard Clark and the White House. So the idea was that we get things moving, have a quick look how it goes, and we'll see they want cybersecurity related degree programs and academic standards. Academic standards means teach the teacher. Can the teachers teach this stuff? Not much point saying, yesterday I taught Java programming, now I am teaching cybersecurity. Colleagues, I have seen that so often, it's laughable. It is absolutely laughable. That's the reality here, in Australia, right now. Yeah, you're teaching maths last week, now you're teaching cybersecurity this week. That's about right. Okay. So, oops. Oh. So here is a quick figure there for the number of universities that are now offering courses in the United States. There are about 3,000 cyber-related courses. That's what we would call an individual unit or a subject in the United States. About 3,000 over there. The Centers of Academic Excellence program, which I was very pleased to say I was there when it started and talked to some people about that in 1998-99 with Richard Clark. And the idea there is, I think this is something I recommend to the Australian government, to the Prime Minister and to the appropriate ministers, the Scholarship for Service program. If you want to get new kids into cyber, give them a scholarship, pay their fees, give them dorm, and this is what Richard was worried about. We were talking about what's called bonding. The students in America under this program are bonded for the same period with a government department, although this changed that 2 months ago. You can now get approval to work at a university, a nominated university. It needn't be a government department, so it's a bit of a change. So that's rather good. Scholarship for Service program, excellent. Started off very slowly, but in the last few years, talking to friends over there, they're getting more applications for the positions available every year. And last time I was over there talking with them, the budget which went through Congress for that one was $57 million for that particular program. Okay. And here they are here. There they are. The 70, I won't go through them, but you can see there are essentially 226 CAE institutions validated. The government validates each institution and gives them an award. They can then become a CAE. Well, what does the rest of the world think of us? This is an advertisement for Carnegie Mellon University, now offering online courses here in Australia. Australia is falling behind in cybersecurity arms race. This is an ad to Australians to do the course at Carnegie Mellon in the United States. Why? Because we're falling behind. It says it all. The UK has followed on with the Academic Centres of Excellence. In the UK, there are 14 universities nominated in 2017, and that will continue into this year. And they're in cybersecurity research. They've got the Cyber First bursaries now coming out, which are £4,000 each in the United Kingdom, and they get paid cybersecurity work experience in the government. That was the good thing, which I talked to Richard about many years. The important thing about even bonding into the government was that the student would come out with their course and 2 years experience in the government department. And by the way, if you look at that SEEK ad, those SEEK ads, how many say experience required? We're not going to hire a new kid. So you got the idea? Let's move ahead. So, where are we now? Well, we need to have type of education that understands user requirements, developer requirements, and we'll call it product requirements, where you build and develop cybersecurity products and systems, okay? They're different requirements and they're different incentives. We have to work very carefully to make sure our curriculum matches that particular requirement. Okay, so are we doing that right now? Not really, although the international curriculum does actually do that at the present juncture. The new curriculum from the TAFEs is more towards the user side of the fence. Well, after all, guys, we are a technological colony, aren't we? We are colonized. Remember, there's a movie called, what's it called? Schwarzenegger was in the original one, and it's got to do with Total Recall 2012. Look at Total Recall 2012. They talk about the colonies, and the little map on the movie that shows the colonies going down to Australia. So that's what. It was rather fun. Okay, so we have to ramp up cybersecurity education. It's desperately needed in our country. We need new programs and new thinking, no doubt about that. Core competencies, we need to have it. But will we fund it? The Joint Task Force, which I've shown you here, has given us a curriculum program. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, it's already there. And there are 25 contributors to that. So, I'll finish off and say basically, we have a problem. What are we going to spend on cyberspace defense in our country? Okay? Well, you know, one submarine would be easily equal to anything you can think of for cybersecurity. But, you know, we're spending money on new submarines. How much are we spending on the new, agreed, NATO, fourth domain of conflict, cyber? It ain't $1.5 billion. No, it's not. So we have a problem. We have to get that moving, cyber versus physical. So, in summary, some form of cyber is available at most universities. There are different awards. Be very careful what you get. There are missing elements in the syllabus. Things are changing, but we don't have a scholarship for service program. We don't have a way of bringing young people in and giving them experience, which the SFS did. And of course, TAFEs are now moving fast. The question is, will that be really sufficient? So there we are. Academics and universities, we need to talk about what we need to do. We have to train the trainer, educate the educator. Laboratories, most of the labs at university do not have range facilities. You all know what a cyber range is. Most of them have never heard of it. Most of them haven't got cyber ranges. But you need to do that, you're going to train them. And a few more things. We have to have work ready, to quote the Australian government. Okay, and with that, I see basically one of the major problems is how on earth, over a long period of time, we've forgotten the basics of cybersecurity. And that's a little poem for us people in operating system security that was very, very interesting some time ago in a major contribution. And of course, this thing, here we go. We all remember 2001, 50 years ago, and what happened. The new world of AI and cybersecurity is coming with us right now. Are we educating and teaching to that new world? Well, remember 1968, Hal. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. And as you know the story, one of the guys gets killed and Hal takes control. Is that where cybersecurity heads in the future? Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Paul Caelli. Fantastic presentation, thank you very much. There are a few questions submitted via the app, so
Yeah.
I'll just go from top to bottom.
Yeah.
So Phil asks,
Phil.
should there be a push for companies/agencies to be funding staff education in InfoSec? Are there simple resources out there to help sell this need to the company execs? Well,
Invite me out and I'll start talking. The answer basically is just look overseas. Just what is happening. Two things. Look what's happening in the UK. Look what has happened in the USA. They've got 20 years of doing this. They've realised cyber is still a cost centre for business, right? So the answer basically is government has to take the lead. The guys in the United States realise that. The UK's realised that we need something like a scholarship for service program to answer that particular question, and that could give the students some experience. I'm not sure whether we'll get it. Let's hope we can. The only good thing is we maybe, what's yesterday's paper, or this morning's paper, something about China. You must look at China. Xi Jinping has announced 5 major centres in cybersecurity education and research to be established in China. So maybe that might give some impetus into it. It's political.
Alrighty, and I have a few more questions here. So Grant asks, given that the US and the UK both have talent identification programs for high school students, do you feel there would be value in Australia setting up a similar program?
Well, I don't think we value, I think we have to. Given the fact that we now know that cybersecurity and cyber is a domain of warfare, we simply have no choice. I mean, why do we have an Army, Navy and an Air Force? I mean, they're very simple. So the answer is yes, but we need federal government leadership in the area, possibly state too. I mean, a state could take by the horns and take a lead. So over to you, Melbourne, Sydney, somewhere, take a lead. But the answer is, the only way I can see it, there has to be some sort of lead taken, and I recommend the Scholarship for Service program as a model in the United States.
We have two questions from Terence. He firstly asks, if you were advising a Year 12 student to study cybersecurity in Australia, what will be the top 3 courses/degrees?
Well, at the present moment, I actually, in my presentation, you saw there, the top 4 are there right now: University of New South Wales. The new ANU one's not too bad either. So I can go back, I can't remember, there are 4 of them. Caelli University. There are 4 top universities now who offer a full bachelor in cybersecurity area. Then there are, and below that, the biggest problem, and I'll be controversial again, is Queensland. We're almost rock bottom in cybersecurity education in Australia. Almost rock bottom. We used to at QUT, we used to have the Information Security Institute, but the university closed it all down. So Queensland, very much low. Northern Territory is behind us, I think, but not by much. So there's not much in Queensland. New South Wales, Victorian government specifically, so University of Melbourne, University of Victorian government, Deakin University, Deakin, that's the one I remember, Deakin, I'd recommend Deakin, Caelli for the West, University of New South Wales in Sydney. The only good news is that I've heard that University of Queensland may have had a change of heart and might be moving towards doing something, but there's not much.
So I think the answer to that is just get rid of the kids and send them interstate, right?
Well, the only other possibility, which I'm working on now, is if we can get the TAFE to articulate. Get the TAFE to articulate into university will be the way to go. So you do a grad cert, you do the Cert 4 or advanced diploma at TAFE and then move into a degree program would be a very good pathway.
Sure. So we are out of time. There were a few more questions on the board and also a hand up there as well, but I strongly encourage you to approach Bill and ask him personally. So thanks again, Bill.
Okay, thanks a lot.